Hello everyone, I'm back with another episode. And in this one, I want to talk about the techniques I used to create the characters in my animated film, Sensations. I wanted the film to be focused on emotions and the feelings of the characters in the different situations that they are in. I wanted them to feel quite realistic and not overly animated. Those things I find quite hard to animate. Facial expressions that requires acting and so on. So after exploring a few different approaches, I ended up shooting all the acting in live action and then drawing my design over the acting footage. This is almost like a 2D mocap style where an actor drives my character's movements. I'd planned out all the shots beforehand and knew all the angles I wanted. I'd even drawn a lot of the backgrounds at that state, so I knew where to put my camera and how to frame my characters. My girlfriend Jana and my good friend Ryan helped me out with the acting, and we had a day of shooting where we tried to cover as much as possible. The hiker sequence I acted for, and that was shot on another day. With these live action shots, I was able to watch bits of the film and see how things edited. When I was happy with the edit, I dropped the frame rate of the footage quite significantly. As this is quite a lot of frames to draw, and since I'm doing it on my own, I try to reduce the frame rate to a manageable number of frames. Most of the character animations landed around 6 to 8 frames per second. This is quite low, but I also found some ways that allows me to smooth it out later. I will show you that in a bit. So drawing on top of images does not sound too hard, I suppose, but to be fair, it is still quite challenging and requires you to keep things consistent, just as you would if you were doing it without the references underneath. If I draw, let's say, the eye in a certain way in one frame, it has to look similar in the next. So a good idea is to focus on a specific area one at a time and make sure that the animation flows well. If you draw the full character frame after frame, you might end up with, some flickering or strange evolving lines, as it's harder to keep track of how you drew each section. Of course, you can jump back and forth between the frames to check out what the previous or the next one is, but I found it's easier to be more consistent the other way and also actually quite a lot faster. Another good idea is to, of course, have a clear design of your characters before you start, so that you don't end up having animated a few shots and then wanting changes to how your character looks further down the line. I made sure that us, the actors, dressed in the clothes that I actually wanted in the film and using the props required like umbrellas, backpacks, to make things as clear and easy for myself as possible. As I said earlier, I used a technique to smooth out the motion on some of the shots. This is not a super reliable way, but it works for some shots where the difference between the frames were not too big. Let's look at this shot where I look up towards the sky as the rain starts falling. In After Effects, I brought in my character animation that was done in Photoshop. And here, using the effect called Time Warp, I could let the software interpret the frames and create in-betweens. You can get some artifacts with this method, but it's a give and take. Sometimes it looks good, sometimes it doesn't work. For this shot, I think it added quite a nice touch, but things I've learned from doing this film, which I will try to apply in future ones, is to keep a consistent frame rate throughout. Probably 12 frames per second on all shots. This is not the case in this film, and sometimes it bothered me, but hey, we gotta move on, right? I'll show you some technical bits if you plan on using the same method for your film. I'd rendered out the live action references in the right frame rate that I wanted and dragged them into Photoshop. Then on a blank video layer, which you can find here, I started to draw my outline of the character. With the arrow keys on your keyboard, you can move back and forth between the frames to finally cover each frame with your drawings. Make sure you have your patient level on full battery and listen to some good music or podcast or whatever, and also stay hydrated. For the colors, you follow the same principle. Just add a new video layer and put that under your outline layer, and then fill in the colors for each frame. You can use tools like the quick selection tool to speed it up if that works for you. This is heavily time-consuming work if your goal is to have a clean drawing for each frame, but it's pretty brainless activity, so as I said earlier, listening to some podcast or something while doing it helps you to stay away from getting too bored. And that is how the characters were made in my film. Hope that was interesting for you. If you have any further questions, please drop them below and I will try to answer them. Stay motivated and keep animating or drawing or whatever you're into. Subscribe to this channel and click the bell to see when I post next. Have a good day and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.